Ancient engineering holds secrets modern science still cannot unlock. This video will reveal 20 marvels that defy everything we think we know about the past. And by the end, you will see history not as a simple timeline, but as a profound mystery. How did builders without metal tools achieve perfect stone joints? And what powered a flame that burned for centuries without fuel? These are not just old ruins, they are direct challenges to our story of human progress. What does it mean when the past feels more advanced than our present? The journey into these mysteries begins at a place that feels more like a modern construction yard than an ancient ruin. High on the windswept Bolivian Altiplano, over 12,000 feet above sea level, the site of Pumapunku lies shattered. Its name fittingly means the door of the puma, yet today it resembles a cosmic puzzle box violently scattered across the earth. Massive stone slabs, some the size of small trucks, are strewn about as if by a giant's hand. The scene suggests a catastrophic event, a purposeful dismantling of something profound. But it is the surviving details on these broken stones, not their scattered state, that truly defy explanation. Look closely at any one of these andesite blocks, a stone harder than granite. You will find surfaces so flawlessly flat they could rival machined metal, with edges sharp enough to cut paper. On these faces are intricate patterns of geometric cuts, recesses, and protrusions that fit together with other stones like pieces of a three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle. The precision is absolute, with tolerances measuring less than a millimeter across massive spans. Even more telling are the perfectly cylindrical drill holes found in some slabs, holes so uniform they appear to have been made by a high-speed industrial bit, not a primitive hand tool. Some of these blocks weigh over 100 tons, yet they were shaped and transported across miles of rugged terrain by a culture that, according to mainstream history, lacked the wheel, draft animals, or even hardened iron tools. This presents a paradox that cuts to the heart of the mystery. The Tiwanaku people who inhabited this region are known for their remarkable culture, but their known toolkit, stone hammers, bronze chisels, seems utterly inadequate for the task at hand. Using those tools to achieve such microscopic precision on volcanic rock would be like trying to carve a detailed sculpture with a sledgehammer. The complexity is so advanced that some engineers and archaeologists have proposed a startling theory. They suggest these stones were not carved in place through slow, laborious effort, but were instead prefabricated. The idea is that individual blocks were precision cut elsewhere to a master blueprint, then brought to the site for assembly, much like how we manufacture parts for a complex machine today. This concept of ancient prefabrication is completely alien to everything we understand about pre-Columbian engineering in the Americas, so we are left with a haunting question hanging in the thin mountain air. How could a civilization achieve such a feat? The standard explanations strain under the weight of the evidence. The perfection of Pumapunku's stonework sets a daunting standard, a high bar that the very first entry on our list clears with impossible grace. It forces us to wonder if we have underestimated the ingenuity of the past, or if we are missing a crucial chapter in the story of human technology altogether. The silent perfection of stone gives way to a whisper of moving parts, found not on land but in the deep. A century ago, sponge divers off the coast of a small Greek island called Antikythera stumbled upon the ghost of a sunken Roman cargo ship. Among statues and pottery, they recovered a lump of corroded bronze and wood, so encrusted it seemed like just another piece of junk. It was set aside for years, deemed unimportant. But when the crust finally broke away, the world was presented with a mystery that rewrote the history of technology. Inside was an intricate clockwork assembly of at least 30 interlocking bronze gears, some with teeth so finely cut they mesh with microscopic precision. This was the Antikythera Mechanism, and it has been called the world's first known analog computer. Its purpose, painstakingly decoded by researchers using advanced imaging techniques, is breathtaking. This wasn't a toy or a simple calendar. It was a portable, hand-cranked astronomical prediction machine. By turning a handle, an ancient user could simulate the complex motions of the sun, the moon, and likely the 5 known planets. It could predict lunar and solar eclipses with remarkable accuracy, not just for the coming year, but for decades into the future. It even modeled the irregular orbit of the moon, a subtlety that requires a sophisticated understanding of celestial mechanics. One dial tracked the 4-year cycle of the ancient Olympic Games, tying the cosmos to human culture. The complexity of its gearing, including a brilliant differential gear, a component not seen again until the automobile, is comparable to the intricate clocks of the 18th century. Yet this device was crafted sometime between 200 and 100 years before the Common Era. This creates what scholars term a historical ghost. The Antikythera Mechanism is not just advanced for its time, it is utterly alone. Nothing remotely like it appears in the archaeological record before it, and nothing like it appears again for over 1,000 years. It is a single, dazzling data point in a void. Its existence forces a profound question. Was this a one-of-a-kind masterpiece from a lone genius, a prototype that never saw wider use? Or was it a glimpse into a much broader but now completely lost tradition of Hellenistic high technology? The ship carrying it was a Roman vessel, likely looting Greek treasures. This suggests the mechanism was not unique, but perhaps one of many such devices, part of a sophisticated scientific culture that viewed the universe as a great, predictable machine. Its discovery shatters the smooth, upward curve of technological progress we often imagine. It shows that peaks of genius can rise, be forgotten, and vanish into the sea for centuries, leaving later generations to believe such ideas were never thought at all. This ghost from the depths proves that the ancient world could think in gears and cycles as masterfully as it built in stone, a fleeting vision of a science that was, and then suddenly was not. That single, sunken device reveals a world of lost mechanical genius, but another kind of intelligence is etched into the mountains of Peru. High above the former Inca capital of Cusco, the fortress of Sacsayhuamán presents a different kind of puzzle, one built not from moving gears, but from stones that seem to defy the very concept of movement. Its walls are less a construction and more a geological phenomenon, a seamless fusion of rock that appears to have grown, not been built. The scale is the first thing that overwhelms you. Zigzagging ramparts are composed of limestone blocks so massive they make you question reality, with the largest estimated to weigh 200 tons. That is equivalent to about 35 adult elephants. These behemoths were not sourced locally. They were hauled from quarries miles away, up and down steep Andean valleys, by a culture that did not use the wheel for transport. The journey itself is a monumental mystery, but it is the destination that truly confounds. Each of these colossal stones was not simply stacked. They were sculpted into intricate, polygonal shapes, a dizzying array of angles with as many as 12 distinct sides. Like a 3-dimensional stone jigsaw puzzle, each block was painstakingly shaped to interlock perfectly with every stone surrounding it, above, below, and to the sides. The fit is so precise that for centuries, locals and visitors alike have said you cannot slip a razor blade or even a piece of paper between the joints. This is not poetic exaggeration, it is observable, tactile fact. The result is a wall with no straight lines and no mortar. It is a wall that breathes and flexes. This is where ancient engineering reveals its profound foresight. Peru sits in a highly active seismic zone, rattled by earthquakes for millennia. A conventional, rigid wall of rectangular blocks bound by mortar would crack and crumble under such stress. But the genius of Sacsayhuamán's polygonal masonry is its dynamic stability. During a tremor, these interlocking stones with their myriad of angles actually shift and settle minutely against one another, redistributing the energy throughout the entire structure before settling back into place. It is an ancient form of seismic dampening, a technology we strive to replicate in modern skyscrapers. How did the Inca stonemasons achieve this? The tools found at archaeological sites, river cobbles used as hammers, bronze and stone chisels, seem laughably inadequate for such precision work on such a titanic scale. One compelling theory suggests a sophisticated understanding of stone's properties. Some researchers propose that stonemasons may have used a technique of thermal shock. By building small fires along a desired fracture line on a massive stone, and then rapidly cooling the heated surface with water or vinegar, they could induce controlled cracking. The stone would essentially split itself along the thermally stressed line. This would create a relatively flat surface, which could then be painstakingly pecked and ground into its final, complex shape using those simple stone tools, a process requiring immense time and generational patience. This theory hints at a deep, empirical science of materials, a knowledge passed down through generations of master builders. Yet, even with this explanation, the margin for error over hundreds of massive blocks remains vanishingly small. The walls of Sacsayhuamán stand as a silent rebuke to our assumptions about primitive technology. They were not just building a fortress, they were engineering resilience into the landscape itself, crafting a dialogue between mountain and masonry that has withstood the test of time and tectonics. It is a permanent solution carved in stone, a stark contrast to our next marvel, which was designed to be anything but permanent. While the walls of Sacsayhuamán were built to stand forever, another ancient culture invested immense effort into creating objects of perfect impermanence, meant not to endure conquest but to mark something far more elusive. Deep in the humid jungles of Costa Rica's Diquis Delta, a discovery was made in the 1930s that initially seemed almost playful. Workers clearing land for banana plantations began unearthing strange, smooth stones. But these were not ordinary river rocks. They were spheres, hundreds of them, ranging in size from a child's toy to colossal orbs over 2 meters across and weighing more than 15 tons. They were carved from a hard stone called granodiorite, and they possessed an eerie, almost manufactured perfection. The pre-Columbian peoples who crafted them, part of the Diquis culture, left no written records, and the spheres were often found moved from their original locations by later settlers. This has turned them into one of archaeology's most charming yet profound riddles. What was their purpose? Theories abound, each as intriguing as the next. Some spheres were found arranged in alignments that suggest astronomical observatories, pointing to solstice sunrises or significant stars. Others appear in groupings near the foundations of chiefly homes, possibly serving as symbols of power and social status. Still others, found along ancient pathways, might have acted as territorial markers or sacred monuments. Their true meaning is lost, making each sphere a silent stone sentence in a forgotten language. The deeper mystery, however, lies not in their arrangement but in their creation. How did a society using only stone hammers and other primitive tools achieve such near-flawless geometry? The sphericity of the best examples is astonishing. Modern analysis shows deviations of less than 2% from a perfect sphere, a level of precision that seems to defy handcrafting. Their surfaces are polished to a smooth, uniform finish. Consider the challenge. You start with a rough boulder of incredibly hard granite. Using only other rocks, you must peck away material evenly from all sides, constantly checking the form, ensuring no flat spots or bulges develop. It is a sculptural process requiring a masterful, three-dimensional spatial sense and relentless patience. Even more baffling is the consistency across multiple spheres. Crafting one perfect sphere by hand is a monumental feat of skill. Crafting dozens of varying but precise diameters suggests a standardized technique, a transferable knowledge of geometry and proportion. Some researchers propose a method involving controlled fracturing. The artisans may have shaped the rough sphere by repeatedly heating the stone and then cooling it rapidly, causing layers to fall off. Then, the final shaping and polishing could have been achieved through a long process of grinding with abrasive sands and smoother stones. This theory is plausible, yet the margin for error remains vanishingly small. To achieve such uniformity without a single miscalculation, without one sphere becoming lopsided, speaks to a cultural tradition of stoneworking that had perfected its art to an almost industrial level of consistency. With modern machinery, we can create a perfect sphere with ease, but to do so with the tools available over 1,000 years ago requires a kind of tactile genius we can barely comprehend. It is a quiet, persistent perfection scattered across the jungle floor, a testament to a people who valued celestial harmony and geometric purity enough to literally carve it in stone. Their silent, spherical legacy poses a gentle but insistent question about what we consider possible, a question that grows even louder when we encounter a structure that seems to defy the very laws of physics. From the quiet perfection of stone spheres, we move to a monument of metal that stands in defiant silence against the most relentless force of nature. In the heart of Delhi, within the historic Qutb complex, a single iron pillar has been watching empires rise and fall for more than 1,600 years. It stands just over 7 meters tall, a solid shaft of wrought iron forged in the 4th century, and it presents a simple, stunning fact: it does not rust. In a world where modern steel bridges and cars require constant maintenance and protective coatings to fight corrosion, this ancient pillar has been exposed to sun, monsoon rains, and polluted air for 16 centuries with only the faintest patina of color. Its longevity is not just impressive, it is an outright metallurgical mystery that contemporary science still grapples to fully explain. The pillar is composed of astonishingly pure wrought iron, but its secret lies in its precise chemical recipe. Modern analysis reveals it contains a high percentage of phosphorus, while having very little sulfur and manganese. This specific imbalance is critical. During the forging process, ancient Indian blacksmiths, likely using a technique of repeated heating and hammering, inadvertently encouraged the formation of a thin, protective layer on the pillar's surface. This layer is a compound called mesawite, a blend of iron, oxygen, and hydrogen that acts as a passive, self-healing barrier. When the surface is scratched or weathered, this film reforms, preventing the underlying iron from reacting with oxygen and moisture to create destructive rust. What makes this so extraordinary is that this perfect protective film formed under a specific and unrepeatable set of circumstances. It required that exact phosphorus-rich iron, those particular forging methods, and even the climatic conditions of Delhi over centuries to catalyze and maintain the layer. Modern attempts to replicate this effect have struggled because our industrial steel production typically removes phosphorus as an impurity, as it can make steel brittle under certain conditions. The ancient metalworkers, operating without modern chemistry, somehow achieved a perfect balance. They created a material that was both structurally sound for its purpose and miraculously durable against time. This pillar is not a relic of lost high technology in the sense of complex machinery. It is a relic of profound, intimate material science. It represents a peak of empirical knowledge, a mastery of craft so deep that the artisans understood the hidden behavior of their materials through generations of observation and practice. This knowledge appears to have been an artisanal secret, not a widely documented science. It was a high watermark that later receded, leaving the pillar standing alone as a testament to a forgotten pinnacle of metallurgy. It forces us to ask a humbling question. How many other such peaks of practical genius have been lost, not to catastrophe, but simply to the slow passage of time and the fragility of human memory? This single, uncorroded pillar is a stark reminder that advancement is not always a linear march forward, but a landscape where isolated summits of achievement can shine for millennia, waiting for the modern world to rediscover their secrets. That single iron pillar stands as a monument to a secret science of materials, a knowledge held in the hands of the artisan. But what happens when the canvas for such knowledge is not a shaft of metal, but the entire surface of the earth itself? Far to the west, on the arid plains of southern Peru, the desert floor holds a different kind of inscription. The Nazca lines are not built upward, but drawn on a colossal scale, turning over 500 square kilometers of rocky plateau into the world's most mysterious sketchbook. From ground level, the landscape appears as a confusing network of shallow, scraped pathways, but ascend to the sky and a breathtaking gallery reveals itself. A hummingbird with wings outstretched spans the length of a jetliner. A spider, precise in every leg joint, could cover a city block. A monkey with a spiraling tail seems to dance across the valley. Alongside these biomorphic figures are clean geometric shapes, trapezoids and triangles, and lines so straight and long they vanish over the horizon, some running unerringly for over 30 miles across hills and gullies. The creation process in its basic form is understood. The Nazca people between 2,000 and 1,500 years ago removed the top layer of dark, sun-baked stones to reveal the lighter-colored sand beneath. The contrast creates the visible lines, but the how and the why of this endeavor plunge us into a profound engineering and cultural mystery. How do you design a perfect, proportional image of a condor when you are standing at its foot, unable to see the whole? The scale is so vast that the entire figure is invisible to its creators. It is like trying to paint a detailed portrait on a canvas the size of a football field by only looking at the brush in your hand. Researchers suggest the Nazca must have employed extraordinarily sophisticated surveying techniques. One prevailing theory involves scaling up a small master design. Artisans could have first created a precise model on a small scale, using a system of ropes, stakes, and a consistent unit of measurement. Teams could then transfer key points from the model out onto the desert floor, essentially plotting a giant coordinate grid. To maintain those straight lines over miles of uneven terrain, they likely used simple but effective sighting tools. By aligning a series of stakes along a desired path, using the horizon or distant mountain peaks as a reference, they could create a perfectly straight guideline visible to the workers clearing the stones. This required not just skill, but a shared, disciplined vision executed over generations. The purpose of these immense drawings is the other half of the enigma. Were they astronomical calendars aligning with solstice sunrises or specific star clusters? Some lines do point to celestial events, but not all. Were they sacred pathways for ritual processions, walked by priests to communicate with deities believed to reside in the sky and the mountains? Or were they, as some have poetically suggested, messages intended for the deities themselves, best viewed from the realm those gods inhabited? The most compelling answer may encompass all these ideas. The lines likely served as a vast ceremonial landscape, integrating astronomy, mythology, and a plea for life-giving water in an unforgiving desert. The real marvel is the cognitive leap it represents. The Nazca culture visualized their world not just horizontally, but from a hypothetical, divine perspective. They engineered faith and cosmology into the very skin of the earth, executing a plan so large it could only be fully appreciated by the gods, or by a future civilization that would one day learn to fly. This act of drawing for an unseen viewer speaks to a different kind of intelligence, one that planned in dimensions beyond the immediate. It is a testament to human ambition to leave a mark so vast it transcends the human scale, a concept that finds a darkly fascinating parallel in a city built not for the living, but for the eternal journey beyond. The ambition to leave a permanent mark reaches its absolute zenith not in lines on a desert, but in a mountain crafted by human hands. The Great Pyramid of Giza is so familiar an icon that its sheer, outrageous impossibility has been smoothed over by centuries of postcards. But strip away the assumption and look at the raw numbers. This structure, built over 4,500 years ago, was the tallest building in the world for nearly 4 millennia. It consists of approximately 2.3 million individual blocks of limestone and granite. The average block weighs 2.5 tons, roughly the weight of a large SUV, and many of the interior granite blocks used in the king's chamber weigh between 50 and 80 tons. These were not simply piled up, they were assembled with a precision that would be demanding even with modern laser guidance. The pyramid's base is a near-perfect square, with sides that vary by less than 0.1% in length. Its 4 faces are aligned to the cardinal directions with an error of just a fraction of a degree, a feat requiring an understanding of astronomy far beyond simple stargazing. Perhaps most stunning of all, the entire monument was reportedly completed within the 20-year reign of the pharaoh Khufu. This timeline is not just impressive, it is violently efficient. It means that workers would have had to quarry, shape, transport, and precisely set one of those multi-ton blocks every 2 to 3 minutes, working 10-hour days for 20 years straight. This is the logistical nightmare at the heart of the mystery. How was it physically possible? The theories we have feel like they are straining against the weight of the evidence. The most common idea involves massive straight ramps built from the ground up, growing with the pyramid. But the volume of material needed for such a ramp would have rivaled the pyramid itself, creating a second, arguably greater engineering project. Other theories propose an internal, spiraling ramp built within the growing structure, or a system of levers and counterweights. While each has merits, none fully resolves the incredible speed and precision required, especially for placing the massive granite beams in the chambers deep inside. The quarrying itself is another puzzle. How did workers extract such consistently sized blocks from bedrock using only copper chisels and stone pounders? The transportation is just as baffling. Moving an 80-ton granite slab from a quarry 500 miles away, then maneuvering it up the growing pyramid, is a problem modern engineers would ponder deeply even with heavy machinery. The precision of the stonework is the final, silent argument. The joints between the massive casing stones, now mostly gone, were reportedly so tight that a razor blade could not fit between them. This level of craftsmanship on an industrial scale suggests a lost methodology, a systematized knowledge of geometry, logistics, and collective labor that we have yet to fully comprehend. The Great Pyramid stands as the ultimate statement in stone, a project of such overwhelming confidence that it seems to whisper a challenge across the centuries. It suggests a society that did not just build a tomb, but mastered time itself, creating a monument that would outlast languages, empires, and the very memory of how it was done. This pursuit of permanence through stone finds a strange echo in a much later culture, one that sought to master not just rock, but the very flow of water itself. The pursuit of permanence in stone finds its most staggering expression not in a finished building, but in the raw, abandoned ambition of a quarry. In the Bekaa Valley of Lebanon, the ancient site of Baalbek presents a mystery that begins with a simple, overwhelming fact of weight. Here, the Romans built a magnificent temple complex dedicated to Jupiter, but they did so atop a foundation platform that predates them by centuries, perhaps millennia. And within that platform sits the trilithon, 3 perfectly fitted limestone blocks that form a single, impossible course. Each of these stones measures roughly 64 feet long, 14 feet high, and 12 feet wide. Their weight is estimated at 800 tons. For perspective, that is heavier than a fully loaded Boeing 747 jetliner. Yet these are not the largest stones at Baalbek. Just down the slope, in the quarry from which they were cut, lies a true behemoth, known as the Stone of the Pregnant Woman. This single, partially detached block is estimated to weigh 1,650 tons. It is the largest known worked stone from the ancient world. The scale is so immense it bypasses awe and enters the realm of pure logistical bewilderment. The engineering puzzle here is a three-part challenge, and each part seems to defy the tools and knowledge we typically attribute to antiquity. First, extraction. How do you cleanly separate a 1,600-ton block from the bedrock? The quarry walls show clear, precise cut marks, suggesting a methodical process, but the forces required are colossal. Second, shaping. The stones of the trilithon have perfectly flat faces and sharp, precise edges. Dressing a stone of that size to such a finish is like trying to sand a skyscraper with a piece of sandpaper. Third, and most baffling, transportation. The quarry sits over half a mile from the temple site, and the path involves a gentle but definite incline. Moving an 800-ton block that distance, then lifting it over 20 feet into position alongside its neighbors with perfect alignment, is a problem that would give a modern engineering firm pause even with hydraulic transporters and mega cranes. The Romans, master engineers in their own right, are credited with the temple above, but many researchers argue these foundational megaliths are far older, possibly the work of a preceding civilization whose name is lost to time. The Romans may have simply found these titanic blocks already in place and built upon them, inheriting a mystery they themselves could not replicate. The question of method haunts the site. Theories propose systems of enormous wooden rollers, levers, and earthen ramps, using the labor of thousands. Yet the physics involved strain these explanations. The coefficient of friction, the strength of ancient ropes, the sheer mass needing acceleration and deceleration, each variable introduces a point of catastrophic failure. Some have even speculated about the use of acoustic levitation or forgotten forms of mechanical advantage, ideas that remain in the realm of speculation. The Baalbek megaliths stand as a silent testament to a will that refused to be limited by what seemed possible. They represent a moment in history where ambition outpaced recorded technique, leaving behind a physical question mark carved in limestone. It is a reminder that the foundations of our known history are sometimes built upon stones whose origin story we have yet to truly read. From the crushing weight of megaliths, we turn to a mystery of feather-light pages that somehow carries an even heavier burden of the unknown. In a vault at Yale University rests a small, unassuming book that has become the ultimate locked room of the intellectual world. Known as the Voynich Manuscript, it is a codex created in the 15th century, a time when the printing press was about to revolutionize knowledge. Yet this book represents the opposite of dissemination. It is a fortress of secrets. Its 240 pages are a gallery of profound bewilderment. They are filled from edge to edge with an elegant, flowing script composed of characters seen nowhere else on Earth. This unknown alphabet forms words and sentences that follow consistent patterns, suggesting a real language with grammar and syntax, but one that has never been spoken or read by any culture we recognize. The text is accompanied by illustrations that are at once meticulous and utterly alien. There are pages of plants with bulbous roots and twisting leaves that resemble no known botany, herbal sections depicting flora that seems to belong to another world. Astronomical diagrams show unfamiliar constellations and celestial spheres with strange, nested orbits. Perhaps most puzzling are the biological sections, which include intricate drawings of small, nude female figures bathing in or connected by tubes to a complex, fluid-filled system of vessels, a diagram that looks less like medieval medicine and more like a schematic for an organic machine. For over a century, this book has been a siren call to the world's best codebreakers. Military cryptographers who cracked enemy ciphers in 2 world wars have turned their skills to its pages and failed. Modern computational linguists have fed its text into powerful algorithms, searching for the statistical fingerprints of known languages, from Latin to a constructed tongue. They have found nothing. High-resolution scans have been pored over by armies of amateur and professional sleuths online, yet the cipher holds. This is what makes the Voynich Manuscript an engineering marvel, not of stone, but of information. It is a system, a deliberately constructed vessel for knowledge designed to be impenetrable. The sheer consistency of its script, the fact that it follows linguistic rules, proves it is not random gibberish. Someone or some group went to immense effort to encode a vast body of information, whether it was genuine scientific insight, elaborate fantasy, or an elaborate hoax. The possibility of a hoax is often raised, yet even that theory falters. Creating over 200 pages of consistently structured fake language and hundreds of detailed, inventive illustrations in the 15th century would have been a monumental, pointless labor. The vellum and inks are period appropriate, and the book shows signs of earnest use with fold-outs and wear from handling, so we are left with a chilling possibility. What if it is real? What if it contains a complete system of knowledge, botanical, astronomical, physiological, that operates on principles entirely outside our historical framework? The manuscript stands as a stark monument to the limits of our decryption. We can scan it atom by atom, but we cannot hear the voice of its author. It is a whisper from the past that we lack the ears to understand, a reminder that some doors once closed by time may never open again. This silent book challenges our belief that all knowledge can eventually be recovered, posing a question that resonates with our next marvel, which speaks not in cryptic text, but in a language of celestial stone and shadow. While a manuscript holds its secrets in cryptic ink, a far more visceral mystery stands sentinel in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Easter Island, or Rapa Nui, is a speck of volcanic rock so isolated it feels like the end of the world. And scattered across its grassy slopes are the silent, watchful Moai. These are not mere statues, they are colossal declarations in stone, averaging 13 feet tall and weighing 14 tons each. The largest, named Paro, is a staggering 33 feet tall and weighs an estimated 82 tons. They were all carved from a single quarry in the crater of an extinct volcano, using nothing but stone hand tools. Their solemn, elongated faces with heavy brows and prominent chins seem to gaze inward, holding a knowledge as remote as the island itself. The creation of a single Moai from the volcanic tuff is a feat of patience and skill, but it is the second act of this drama that transforms the impressive into the seemingly impossible. Once freed from the quarry wall, these multi-ton giants had to travel. Some were destined for ceremonial platforms called ahu along the coast, a journey of up to 11 miles across rugged, undulating terrain. The islanders had no wheels, no draft animals, and no metal. The question of how they moved these stone titans has echoed for centuries. For a long time, the dominant theory involved log rollers and vast teams of people pulling with ropes, a method that would have consumed the island's scarce timber at a devastating rate. But recent experiments have proposed a more dynamic, almost living solution. Researchers and local volunteers have demonstrated that a Moai, with its distinctive forward-leaning center of gravity and rounded base, can be made to walk. By teams strategically rocking the statue from side to side with ropes, they can coax it forward in a stuttering, upright gait. This rocking method is surprisingly efficient, requiring far fewer people than a flat drag. It is a compelling image, these stone giants seeming to stride across the land under the guidance of their creators. Yet, while the physics of moving one statue this way has been shown to work, scaling the theory to explain the transportation of nearly 900 Moai across generations introduces new layers of mystery. The coordination required, the food and water needed for the teams, the paths that had to be cleared and maintained, all point to a society capable of extraordinary long-term planning and social cohesion. The final act of the Moai story adds another layer of profound effort. On some of the erected statues, the Rapa Nui placed massive cylindrical topknots called pukao, carved from a different red volcanic stone. These could weigh over 10 tons each. They had to be quarried from a separate site, transported, and then lifted onto the heads of statues that were already standing. The engineering of this vertical lift, again without cranes or pulleys as we know them, likely involved the construction of large earthen ramps, another monumental task in itself. The entire endeavor, from quarry to coast to crowning, represents one of history's most concentrated cultural engineering projects. It was a societal focus so intense that it likely shaped every aspect of island life for centuries. This raises a poignant and enduring question about legacy and balance. What does it mean for a community to invest so much of its spirit and resources into these stone ambassadors? The Moai were more than art, they were sacred repositories of ancestral power, facing inland to watch over the living. In their silent vigil, they embody a breathtaking paradox, a testament to both human ingenuity and the profound costs of a singular vision. They stand as a powerful reminder that our greatest creations are often mirrors, reflecting not just what we can build, but the priorities that drive us to build them. The silent giants of Easter Island watch over a landscape of immense effort, but in a temple far to the north, a different kind of effort is etched into stone, one that seems to depict not ancestral power, but a startlingly modern form of it. Within the dark confines of the Hathor Temple at Dendera, Egypt, a series of intricate reliefs cover the walls, telling stories of gods and cosmic events. But one particular carving found in a subterranean crypt has ignited a debate that cuts to the very heart of how we interpret the ancient world. To the modern eye, the image is unmistakable. It shows what appears to be a giant, elongated bulb held aloft by a pillar. Inside this bulb, a snake extends in a wavy line from a lotus flower at its base. This serpentine form is encased within the bulb, which itself is connected by a thick cable to a box-like object, upon which a figure kneels. Another figure stands nearby, seemingly holding the bulb pillar steady. The visual parallel to an electric light bulb, complete with a filament, socket, and power source, is so jarring that it feels intentional. Could this be evidence that the ancient Egyptians possessed, or at least conceptualized, some form of electrical technology? Mainstream archaeology offers a different, deeply symbolic interpretation. Egyptologists identify the scene as a representation of a creation myth. The bulb is not a bulb, but the womb of the sky goddess Nut. The snake is the god Harsomptus, a manifestation of the sun's life-giving power, being born from a lotus flower, a symbol of creation. The cable is viewed as a stylized umbilical cord, and the box is a jed pillar representing stability. In this reading, the entire tableau is a spiritual allegory for the dawn of life and cosmic order, carved with the precise iconographic language the Egyptians used for millennia. This orthodox explanation is coherent within the cultural context, yet the specificity of the carving continues to fuel speculation. The proponents of the technological interpretation point to the mechanical precision of the components. The snake's form is perfectly centered and wavy in a way that mirrors the filament in an early incandescent bulb. The bulb's shape, with a narrower neck and rounded end, is architecturally distinct from other symbolic vessels in Egyptian art. The cable appears rigid and connected, and the supporting figures look less like deities in a ritual and more like technicians performing a task. The debate, therefore, is not just about one carving, but about the nature of evidence itself. Are we seeing a symbolic story through a modern lens, imposing our technology onto their mythology? Or are we seeing a literal depiction of a device, a piece of lost knowledge encoded in the only permanent language they had, stone? The truth likely resides in a nuanced space between these poles. The Egyptians were master observers of natural phenomena. They were intimately familiar with electric fish from the Nile and with static electricity produced by polishing amber or certain stones. It is not impossible that such observations led to speculative ideas or even simple experiments with electrical principles, ideas that were then woven into their religious symbolism, blending observed phenomenon with divine narrative. The Dendera relief, whether a sacred symbol or a cryptic diagram, serves a powerful purpose. It challenges the standard, linear narrative of energy use, which states that electricity was only truly harnessed in the modern era. It forces us to ask a more profound question. What constitutes invention? Is it the creation of a working, practical device, or is it the conceptual leap, the recognition of a natural force and its symbolic representation? The carving stands as a permanent invitation to debate, a stone Rorschach test that reveals as much about our own time's technological biases as it does about the ancient mind. It reminds us that the past communicated in a rich, layered language, where the line between profound metaphor and literal description can become beautifully and permanently blurred. The debate over symbols and technology dissolves in the face of a monument that predates them all, a discovery so profound it did not just add a chapter to history, but tore up the book's entire first page. In the arid hills of southeastern Turkey, a simple hill known as Göbekli Tepe was long dismissed as a medieval cemetery. But when archaeologists began to dig in the 1990s, they uncovered a truth that would send shockwaves through our understanding of human prehistory. What they found were not graves but circles, massive, deliberate rings of towering limestone pillars, each one shaped into a stark, imposing T-form. The scale is staggering. These pillars stand up to 18 feet tall and weigh as much as 20 tons. They were quarried from local bedrock, shaped with stone tools, dragged to the site, and erected into precise arrangements, all accomplished over 11,000 years ago. To grasp the magnitude of this, consider the timeline. This temple complex was built around 9,000 years before the Common Era. That is 6,000 years older than Stonehenge, and a full 5 millennia before the first pyramids of Egypt rose from the desert. The builders were not settled farmers living in cities. They were Neolithic hunter-gatherers, people who, according to every established model of societal development, should have been living in small, mobile bands, focused solely on day-to-day survival. They had not yet domesticated plants or animals. They had no metal, no pottery, and no writing, yet they built this. The engineering itself is a multi-layered puzzle. First came the quarrying. Extracting 20-ton blocks of solid limestone from the bedrock using only flint and other stone tools is a monumental act of persistence. Then the shaping. Each pillar was meticulously carved into its distinctive T-shape, a form that many researchers interpret as stylized human figures, with the crossbar representing arms and a head. The surfaces were smoothed, and then came the most breathtaking detail of all. Many of these pillars are adorned with elaborate, deep-cut reliefs. They are a bestiary of the ancient world, carved with a confident, artistic hand. Here you find foxes, cranes, scorpions, boars, and lions, creatures both real and symbolic, frozen in motion on the stone. This is not crude graffiti. This is sophisticated symbolic art on a colossal scale. The implication of this place is what truly shatters the conventional narrative. The standard story of civilization tells us that complex society, monumental architecture, and organized religion were the products of the agricultural revolution. The theory goes that only when people settled down to farm, producing surplus food, could they afford the specialized labor and hierarchical structure needed to build temples and sustain priests. Göbekli Tepe turns this logic completely on its head. Here, it appears that the temple came first. The construction and maintenance of this sacred site would have required a large, coordinated workforce. Hundreds of people would have been needed to quarry, transport, and erect the pillars. They would have needed to be fed, housed, and organized. This suggests that the very impulse to come together for a grand, spiritual purpose may have been the catalyst that led to settled life, not the other way around. The need to feed the builders and the pilgrims gathering at this central place could have provided the pressure to domesticate wild grains and animals, effectively planting the seeds of agriculture itself. Replicating Göbekli Tepe today is not merely a challenge of moving heavy stones without modern machinery, though that alone would be formidable. The true challenge is replicating the mindset, the social alchemy that convinced nomadic hunter-gatherers to commit generations to a single, awe-inspiring project. It forces us to ask a humbling question about human motivation. What shared vision, what powerful idea, was so compelling that it could unite scattered bands for a common goal of such staggering ambition, long before kings, empires, or written laws? This site stands as a silent testament to a different origin story, one where the human spirit, driven by belief and community, built the impossible first, and only later invented the society to explain it. The profound silence of Göbekli Tepe's forgotten purpose echoes in a very different kind of hollowed space, one not built upward but excavated with relentless determination into the earth itself. In the Zhejiang province of China, buried beneath the quiet village of Longyou, lies an underground empire of stone, discovered by accident in 1992 by a local farmer draining a pond. These are not natural caverns. They are 24 colossal, hand-carved grottos, a subterranean complex so vast and precise it feels like the inverted footprint of a lost civilization. Stepping into one of these caves is an experience that defies scale. You are standing in a chamber the size of a cathedral, with soaring ceilings held aloft by enormous, evenly spaced pillars of solid sandstone. The space is immense, but it is the walls that truly captivate. From floor to ceiling, every single surface walls, pillars, even the vast ceilings overhead, is covered in a uniform pattern of parallel chisel marks. These are not random tool strikes. They are consistent, flowing grooves, each about the width of a hand, running in precise, unbroken bands across thousands upon thousands of square meters of stone. The pattern is deliberate, almost decorative, a dizzying testament to an obsession with order and symmetry. The sheer volume of rock removed to create this hidden world is the first staggering number. Conservative estimates suggest over 1 million cubic meters of sandstone were quarried from underground. That is enough excavated material to fill over 400 Olympic-sized swimming pools. And this leads to the first practical mystery: where did it all go? There are no massive spoil heaps in the surrounding landscape, no valleys filled with rubble. The rock simply vanished, a logistical feat as puzzling as the carving itself. The engineering challenges only deepen from there. Each cavern is a masterpiece of architectural foresight. The pillars are not decorative, they are critical structural supports, positioned with an understanding of load distribution to prevent the soft sandstone ceiling from collapsing. The angles of the walls, the slopes of the ceilings, and the consistent thickness of the rock left between adjacent caves all point to a sophisticated, preconceived plan. This was not a haphazard dig. It was a coordinated, underground construction project executed with blueprint-like precision. Yet for all this staggering effort, history is utterly silent. No scroll, no stele, no local legend or dynasty record mentions the construction of the Longyou Caves. They appear in no tax document, no poet's verse, no imperial chronicle. They were simply forgotten, their very existence erased from cultural memory until that chance discovery in the 20th century. This absence is as profound as the caves themselves. Why would a society invest what must have been generations of labor using bronze or early iron tools to create a monumental space with no apparent practical purpose? They show no signs of habitation, no soot from torches, no burial remains, no storage pits. They are eerily clean and empty. The most compelling clues are those relentless parallel chisel marks. Some researchers see them as purely functional, the most efficient way for large teams to remove material using hand tools. Others propose a symbolic meaning, perhaps representing water, waves, or a spiritual concept lost to time. The grooves give the stone a flowing, textile-like quality, as if the solid rock was meant to mimic something fluid and soft. Ultimately, the Longyou Caves stand as a monument to a different kind of mystery. Unlike a pyramid or a temple, whose purpose we can infer, these caverns offer no answers, only scale and silence. They represent engineering for engineering's own sake, or for a purpose so specific and alien that we cannot yet recognize it. They force us to confront the possibility that the past contains not just lost technologies, but lost intentions, whole chapters of human endeavor where the why has dissolved, leaving only the overwhelming, grooved evidence of the how. The overwhelming silence of a purpose-built void finds a strange parallel in a structure that was deliberately buried. Deep beneath the sands of Abydos, Egypt, lies a monument that feels out of place, not just in location, but in time itself. Beneath the graceful, finely carved temple of Pharaoh Seti I, a subterranean world opens up. This is the Osireion, and to step into it is to experience a jarring architectural dissonance. Above, you have the pinnacle of New Kingdom artistry, with its exquisite painted reliefs and elegant proportions. Below, you descend into something raw, primal, and massively powerful. The Osireion is built from cyclopean blocks of red granite, stones so enormous they seem to belong to a different age entirely. The style is starkly anachronistic. Instead of the refined, smaller blocks typical of Seti's era, here we see megalithic construction reminiscent of the much older Valley Temple at Giza, with massive, unadorned slabs fitted together with breathtaking precision. The effect is like finding the foundation of a modern skyscraper built from medieval castle stones, a clear, stylistic break that defies simple explanation. The central chamber is a haunting space designed as an artificial island surrounded by a channel of water. This was not a functional moat for defense, but a deeply symbolic feature. In Egyptian mythology, this represented the primordial mound of creation rising from the waters of Nun, the chaotic ocean that existed before time. The entire structure was likely a symbolic tomb for the god Osiris, a place for ritual reenactments of death, flooding, and rebirth. The engineering, however, is what locks the mystery in place. The precision of the stonework on these gargantuan blocks is exceptional. The joints are tight, the surfaces flat, and the corners sharp, achieved on a granite so hard it defies copper chisels. This creates a chronological puzzle that Egyptologists still debate. The conventional attribution is that Seti I built it as part of his own temple complex, making it a conscious stylistic throwback to a more ancient, revered time. But the methods seem too divergent, too fundamentally different from the construction happening directly above it. The alternative theory is even more provocative. What if the Osireion is not a New Kingdom imitation, but a genuinely ancient relic? Could it be a surviving fragment of a far older megalithic culture, a foundation layer from a forgotten epoch that Seti discovered and simply incorporated into his own sacred site, building his temple literally on top of a venerated mystery? This idea challenges the smooth, linear narrative of Egyptian architectural evolution. It suggests that the mastery of moving and shaping 100-ton granite blocks was not a skill that developed gradually over the dynasties, but perhaps a technology that was possessed, lost, and then only partially remembered. The Osireion stands as a geological palimpsest, a page in stone where two different hands seem to have written. Its silent, sunken halls force a simple but profound question. Are we looking at a brilliant pastiche, an ancient civilization's deliberate homage to its own past? Or are we looking at the past itself, a physical artifact that has stubbornly refused to fit neatly into our historical timeline, waiting beneath the sand for its true story to be told? The concept of a power source buried with the dead gives way to a small clay jar that might have held a different kind of power entirely. In the basement of the National Museum of Iraq in Baghdad rests a collection of unassuming artifacts discovered in the 1930s near the ancient village of Kujat Rabu. Among pottery and everyday objects were several peculiar items. Each consisted of a simple 5-inch tall clay jar. Inside each jar was a rolled copper cylinder sealed at the bottom with asphalt. Through the center of this asphalt plug was inserted an iron rod, suspended perfectly within the copper cylinder without touching it. If this assembly were filled with an acidic liquid, vinegar, grape juice, or even lemon juice, something extraordinary happens. The acidic fluid acts as an electrolyte, allowing a chemical reaction between the two dissimilar metals. The iron rod corrodes, and a small electric potential, a voltage, is generated between the copper and the iron. In essence, this Parthian-era object, dating from roughly 200 years before the Common Era to 200 years after, functions as a basic galvanic cell. A battery. The discovery of these so-called Baghdad batteries ignited one of archaeology's most enduring and contentious debates. The central question is not whether the object can produce electricity, as modern replicas have confirmed it can generate about 1 volt, similar to a very weak modern battery. The burning mystery is whether its ancient creators knew it did, and what on earth they used it for. The range of proposed uses reveals how a single artifact can fracture our understanding of technological history. One compelling theory suggests a practical, artisanal application. The voltage, though small, could be used for electroplating, the process of depositing a thin layer of one metal, like gold or silver, onto the surface of another. By connecting several of these jars in a series to increase the voltage, an artisan could have gilded a small object, such as a piece of jewelry or a religious figurine. This would explain the presence of extremely fine, ancient gold plating on some artifacts from the region, work that has long puzzled historians who assumed it was done by mercury gilding, a toxic and difficult process. Another theory points toward the realm of medicine. Ancient texts from Greek and Roman sources describe the use of electric fish to deliver shocks for the relief of pain, a primitive form of electrotherapy. Could a priest or healer have used the mild, tingling current from such a jar to treat ailments, creating a sense of mystical or medicinal power for their patients? A third, more symbolic interpretation proposes a ritual use. The sensation of a faint current, perhaps felt when completing a circuit by touching both metals, might have been interpreted as a divine touch, a tangible manifestation of spiritual energy during a temple ceremony. The jar itself, with its sealed, secretive interior, could have been a sacred object of wonder. The controversy stems from a frustrating lack of context. No wires, electrodes, or connected metal objects were found with the jars. No ancient texts or illustrations describe their assembly or purpose. This silence leaves the artifact in a tantalizing limbo. Skeptics argue it could simply have been a storage vessel for sacred scrolls, with the iron rod acting as a protective core for rolled copper or papyrus, the acidic residue merely accidental. Yet, the specific design, the choice of two reactive metals separated by an insulator and sealed with an asphalt that resists corrosion, is suspiciously optimal for generating a current. It feels like too much of a coincidence. If it was indeed a battery, its implications are quietly revolutionary. It would mean that the fundamental principle of electrochemistry, the controlled generation of electricity through chemical reaction, was not discovered by Alessandro Volta in the year 1800, but was understood and potentially applied over a millennium and a half earlier. This would not be a towering monument like a pyramid, but a whisper of a different kind of genius, a small, portable, and practical understanding of a natural force. The Baghdad Battery, therefore, is not a marvel of scale, but a marvel of concept. It represents the haunting possibility of a technological path not taken, a spark of knowledge that either remained a closely guarded secret, a curious dead end, or was simply lost in the sands of time, waiting for a future civilization to rediscover the same principle and build a world upon it. A single, determined man with a secret can build a world of stone. In the humid landscape of Florida, a Latvian immigrant named Edward Lycian spent 28 years on a solitary, obsessive mission. Working only at night with no witnesses, he single-handedly created the Coral Castle. It is a sprawling complex of megalithic sculptures, walls, and furniture, all carved from oolite limestone, a heavy coral rock. The scale of his achievement is almost comical in its absurdity. The site features a 9-ton gate that rotates with the touch of a finger, a 22-ton obelisk, and a massive rocking chair carved from a single block weighing several tons. The largest stones are estimated at 30 tons, the weight of a city bus. Lycian, a man who stood just 5 feet tall and weighed barely 100 pounds, accomplished this using tools that looked like they belonged to a medieval blacksmith. His known equipment consisted of simple tripods, chain hoists, and metal bars. He claimed to have rediscovered the building secrets of the ancient Egyptians, stating he understood how the pyramids were built and how to make the stones weightless. He spoke of magnetism and the laws of leverage, but he never revealed his actual methods. When asked directly how he moved the stones, he would only give a cryptic smile and say he understood the laws of weight and leverage. The mystery deepens when you consider the logistics. He quarried the massive blocks himself from a site miles away, transported them without modern trucks or cranes, and then shaped and positioned them with impossible precision, all alone. Witnesses reported hearing him sing to the stones, and some even claimed to see the massive blocks floating through the air like hydrogen balloons, though these accounts are unverified. Modern engineers and skeptics have proposed theories. Some suggest he used a system of block and tackle, clever fulcrums, and a profound understanding of center of gravity, patiently moving stones inch by inch over years. Others point to his interest in magnetism and speculate he may have stumbled upon an obscure anti-gravity principle or a method of altering the density of matter. Yet, no one has ever satisfactorily replicated his process with the same tools, speed, and solitary effort. The Coral Castle is unique because it is not an ancient ruin shrouded in millennia of dust. It is a 20th-century puzzle, built in an era of photographs and automobiles, yet its core secret remains as locked away as any from antiquity. It stands as a powerful testament to one man's will, a monument that whispers a tantalizing possibility. Perhaps the greatest secrets of ancient engineering were not complex machines lost to time, but simple principles of physics, rediscovered and applied with relentless patience by a solitary individual who chose to build his dream in stone and take the how of it with him. The solitary mystery of the Coral Castle sinks beneath the waves, leading us to a discovery that blurs the line between geology and architecture entirely. Off the westernmost tip of Japan, near the island of Yonaguni, divers exploring the clear, deep water stumbled upon a sight that stopped them cold. Looming out of the blue darkness was a massive, monolithic structure, a complex of rock formations that looked hauntingly like the ruins of a sunken city. This is the Yonaguni Monument, a site that has become a battleground of interpretation between the forces of nature and the hand of humanity. The structure is colossal, rising from the seafloor to within just a few meters of the surface. Its most striking features are its stark, geometric lines. There are what appear to be wide, flat terraces like giant steps or plazas, dropping in near-perfect right angles. Sharp, clean-edged platforms extend from the main mass. Divers point to formations that resemble carved pillars, a triangular entranceway, and even a face-like profile on one rock wall. The entire complex is covered in marine life, but beneath the coral and algae, the shapes feel unnervingly deliberate. The central question is as deep as the water that surrounds it. Is this a purely natural sandstone formation, or the submerged remnant of an ancient, unknown civilization? Geologists favoring a natural origin have a compelling case. The rock here is sandstone, which naturally fractures along flat plains. Powerful tidal currents in the area could have scoured and eroded the stone over millennia, creating those sharp ledges and stepped platforms through purely physical processes. They argue that what we perceive as architecture is a classic example of pareidolia, the human tendency to see familiar patterns like faces and buildings in random shapes. The ocean, in this view, is a master sculptor whose work we are simply misreading. Yet, those who argue for a human hand point to details that seem to defy simple erosion. They highlight specific features like two round holes about 2 feet apart on one terrace that look precisely drilled. They point to a long, straight channel that runs along the base of the monument, a feature with parallel sides that seems too regular. Most compelling are the collections of smaller, broken stones found neatly stacked on one of the platforms, arrangements that do not match the natural scatter of a collapse. If these are indeed tool marks and deliberate placements, the implications are staggering. The Yonaguni monument now sits under about 80 feet of water. For it to have been built or carved by people, it had to have been done when the area was dry land. Sea levels were that low during the last glacial period, which ended roughly 12,000 years ago. This timeline is the true heart of the mystery. If human, Yonaguni would be a monument from a prehistoric epoch, a time when mainstream history tells us humans were nomadic hunter-gatherers, not builders of massive stone complexes. It would suggest a lost chapter of Pacific prehistory, a culture with the organization and skill to shape the landscape on a monumental scale, only to have their work swallowed by the rising seas as the Ice Age ended. The debate itself is the real marvel here. It highlights a profound challenge for modern science. On a dry archaeological site, distinguishing a worked stone from a weathered one is difficult enough. But on a site submerged for millennia, scoured by currents and encrusted with life, the evidence becomes ambiguous. The tools of geology and archaeology reach their limits, leaving us with a haunting, beautiful, and ultimately unresolved puzzle. Yonaguni forces us to sit with uncertainty. It asks us to look at a shape in the water and decide if we are seeing the ghost of a forgotten world, or simply a reminder of nature's own, boundless capacity to create forms that echo our deepest ambitions. Fire that emerges from the earth is a primal mystery, a glimpse into a world of power beneath our feet. In the ancient region of Lycia, along the rugged coast of modern Turkey, such a phenomenon was not just observed, it was mastered. Classical texts and local legends speak of the Lycian fire, an eternal flame that burned directly from solid rock. This was no ordinary campfire. It was a jet of natural gas, likely methane, seeping from a geological fissure and ignited by a lightning strike millennia ago, creating a perpetual torch that defied wind and rain. The marvel here is not the chemical accident but the human response to it. Evidence suggests that around this miraculous flame, the Lycians did not simply build a shrine. They engineered a system. Archaeologists studying the area have found remnants of ceramic piping and channel structures near ancient temple sites associated with such eternal fires. This points to a startling conclusion. These ancient people may have actively harnessed the gas vent. They could have used those ceramic conduits to capture the seeping methane, directing its flow to multiple altars or lamps within a temple complex, ensuring the sacred flame was present in several places at once. Imagine a holy site where the light never went out, not from oil or wood, but from the very breath of the earth itself, a tangible connection to the underworld made manifest as light and heat. This represents a profound technological leap. It is one of the earliest known examples of humans utilizing a fossil fuel resource not for warmth or cooking, but for a sustained, engineered purpose. They recognized a rare natural resource and built infrastructure to control and distribute it, turning a geological curiosity into a cornerstone of spiritual and communal life. Modern science can easily explain the chemistry of a natural gas seep. We can even replicate the flame in a lab. But what we cannot replicate is the cultural and engineering installation, the generations of knowledge that identified this resource, the skill to fabricate gas-tight ceramic piping without modern materials, and the societal will to integrate this unpredictable terrestrial force safely into the heart of a sacred space. The Lycian fire was more than a wonder, it was a dialogue. It was a civilization speaking to the earth, listening to its gaseous whisper, and answering with temple walls and guided flame. This ancient conversation with hidden energy reveals a pragmatic ingenuity, a willingness to build not just on the land, but with its deepest, most volatile secrets. That dialogue with earthly fire finds a frozen, permanent echo in the stones of a Scottish hillside. Scattered across the highlands and parts of Europe are the remains of ancient hill forts, built from dry stone walls thousands of years ago. But something is terribly wrong with these structures. In sections, the rough stones are not merely blackened by soot. They have been melted and fused together, transformed into a dark, glassy slag that binds the rubble into a solid, vitrified mass. This is not a natural process. To turn stone into glass requires a sustained, ferocious heat of around 1,100 degrees Celsius, a temperature that would make a typical bonfire feel like a cool breeze. It is a heat comparable to a modern industrial furnace or the heart of a blast furnace for smelting iron. The existence of these vitrified forts presents a cold, hard problem that has smoldered in archaeological circles for centuries. How, and more perplexingly why, would ancient builders subject their own defensive walls to such apocalyptic temperatures? The theories attempting to answer this are as varied as they are contentious, and each one opens a new line of inquiry into a forgotten past. One school of thought suggests this was a deliberate construction technique. The idea is that builders layered timber frameworks within the stone walls and then set them ablaze in a controlled manner. The theory proposes that the resulting fire would not just burn, but under the right conditions could create a kind of natural cement, fusing the outer stones into a harder, more formidable barrier that would be resistant to weathering and attack. Yet the practical challenges are immense. Controlling a fire hot enough to melt rock across an entire wall segment without the structure collapsing into a heap of rubble would require an almost magical understanding of pyrotechnics and airflow. There is no historical record or experimental archaeology that has successfully replicated a full-scale vitrification for defensive purposes. Another, more dramatic theory points to warfare. Perhaps these forts were not melted by their builders, but by their destroyers. Could a besieging army have used some form of accelerated fire, combining flammable materials like animal fat, oil, or even sulfur against the walls to create an inferno so intense it literally melted the stone? This would have been a weapon of terror and absolute finality, ensuring the fortress could never be used again. But again, the uniformity of the effect in some forts, with vitrification occurring in specific courses of stone rather than as random scorch marks, argues against a simple, destructive sacking. The third possibility is the most unsettling because it removes human intention entirely. What if these forts were caught in a cataclysm so vast and hot it was beyond any army's capability? Some researchers have pointed to the possibility of massive, continent-wide wildfires fueled by perfect conditions of drought and wind, or even speculative events like plasma discharges from intense solar storms or comet fragments. These natural disasters could have swept across the landscapes, engulfing the hilltop forts in a global firestorm and leaving behind their glassy signatures. This theory, while sensational, struggles to explain why only certain forts and only specific parts of those forts show this effect, while other structures from the same period nearby do not. The true marvel of the vitrified forts is their stubborn resistance to a single, clean explanation. They stand as monuments to an extreme event, but the nature of that event is locked in the glass itself. Recreating this phenomenon today with ancient technology is the core of the challenge. Experiments have shown that with the right combination of specific stones rich in silica, ample dry timber, and clever stacking to create a natural draft, localized vitrification is possible. But scaling this up to an entire fortress wall, and doing it with such consistency across multiple sites, remains a feat that modern researchers have not convincingly achieved. This points to a lost chapter in ancient material science. Perhaps there was a widespread, sophisticated understanding of how to use fire as a transformative tool, a knowledge that died with the cultures that held it. Or perhaps we are seeing the physical scars of a series of historical moments so violent and intense that their true scale is lost to us, leaving only these glassy, silent walls to hint at a past that was far more fiery than we ever imagined. Glass fused by forgotten fires gives way to a collection of stones that seem to hold a different kind of heat, the heat of a historical controversy that refuses to cool. In a private museum in Ica, Peru, a doctor named Javier Cabrera once curated over 15,000 andesite stones, each one covered in intricate, fine-line carvings. The images depicted on them are a chaotic gallery of the impossible. Here, humans are shown in close proximity to creatures bearing an uncanny resemblance to dinosaurs like Triceratops and Stegosaurs. Other stones illustrate what appear to be complex medical procedures, including organ transplants and cesarean sections performed with precise tools. There are maps of unknown continents and detailed astronomical charts showing celestial bodies in unfamiliar arrangements. This is the enigma of the Ica stones, a purported library of anachronistic knowledge etched into rock. The mainstream scientific consensus is resolute, declaring the stones an elaborate modern hoax. The carvings are crisp and fresh, lacking the patina of centuries. The depictions pull directly from 20th century dinosaur reconstructions and popular science. A local farmer even confessed to creating many of them, saying he carved the images using a dental drill and then aged the stones by baking them in cow dung. Case closed, it would seem, yet like a stubborn thread in a tapestry, a few details refused to be neatly snipped away. A small number of these stones were reportedly recovered from deep within sealed burial caves or from undisturbed geological layers, contexts that predate modern contact. While these claims are heavily disputed and lack rigorous, peer-reviewed documentation, their persistence adds a layer of nagging complexity. If even one of these contextually found stones were verified, it would force a seismic reevaluation. The stones would then become an informational engineering marvel, a deliberate attempt by an unknown culture to encode a worldview that collapses our linear timeline. They would represent a data storage system, not in bytes but in lithic code, preserving a narrative where humans witnessed extinct giants and practiced medicine we consider modern. The true replication challenge here is not about carving technique. With a modern rotary tool, anyone can inscribe andesite. The irreplicable element is credibility within the established framework of history. Modern science operates on a foundation of verifiable evidence and chronological coherence. An artifact that so blatantly contradicts that framework faces an almost insurmountable burden of proof. Its very existence becomes a paradox, making its authentication a near impossibility, as any evidence in its favor is immediately scrutinized as part of the hoax. This controversy, more than the stones themselves, highlights a profound theme in our search for the past. We are prepared to find lost technologies of stone and metal, but we are far less equipped to handle lost knowledge that contradicts the story we have already written. The Ica stones, whether a clever fabrication or a ghost of a forgotten reality, ultimately serve as a mirror. They reflect our deep need for an orderly past and the intellectual vertigo we experience when faced with an artifact that suggests the story might be far stranger and far less tidy than we ever allowed ourselves to believe. Taken together, these scattered fragments of the past form a startling pattern. They are not random anomalies, but points on a map of forgotten terrain, hinting at entire landscapes of knowledge that have since been swallowed by time. Each marvel, from the celestial computer of Antikythera to the self-healing iron of Delhi, represents a specialized stream of understanding, a deep dive into a particular aspect of the physical world that was mastered, then seemingly abandoned. It is as if ancient cultures were not climbing a single ladder of progress, but exploring a vast forest of possibility, following different paths of inquiry that we, from our distant vantage point, can barely trace. This suggests a history not of steady accumulation, but of brilliant, isolated blooms that withered before their seeds could be widely sown. The precision stonework of Pumapunku and Sacsayhuamán speaks to a material science that understood rock not as an obstacle, but as a partner, manipulating its properties with a patience we have lost. The Nazca lines and Göbekli Tepe reveal social models of breathtaking coordination, where communities united for projects whose scale still stuns us, driven by a shared vision that bound them together for generations. Even the controversial artifacts like the Dendera bulb or the Baghdad Battery point to a spirit of experimentation with natural forces, light, electricity, chemistry, that modern science would not formally rediscover for over 1,000 years. This pattern of peaks and valleys forces a fundamental rethink. We often envision knowledge as a river, forever flowing forward and growing wider. But what if it is more like a garden? Certain plants, certain technologies and ideas can flourish in one era under specific conditions of culture, need, and leadership. They can grow to astonishing heights. But if those conditions change, if a society fragments, if a crucial lineage of artisans is broken, or if priorities shift entirely, that specialized knowledge can wither on the vine. It is not necessarily suppressed or stolen, though that can happen. More often, it is simply forgotten because no one alive remembers how to tend it, and the younger generation is focused on sowing new, different seeds. The great enigma, then, is not any single marvel, but their collective testimony to the fragility of human understanding. Our linear narrative of progress is comforting, but it may be an illusion woven from the few threads that survived. These 20 mysteries are the frayed ends of other threads, ones that were dropped. They ask us to consider a humbling possibility. Our current technological civilization, for all its power, may not be the first peak, but merely the latest one in a range of mountains whose true expanse we are only beginning to glimpse. The ruins are not just stone and metal, they are the footprints of those other climbers, evidence that the path to the summit has been walked before by different people in ways we are still struggling to comprehend. So these 20 marvels, from the celestial gears of Antikythera to the earthquake-defying walls of Sacsayhuamán, are far more than ancient tourist attractions. They are direct, physical challenges to the story we tell ourselves about human history. Each one stands as a quiet question mark in stone, metal, and earth, asking us to reconsider the timeline of our own ingenuity. They remind us that the past is not a simple, linear story of gradual improvement, but a complex and often fragmented puzzle. We are left with breathtaking pieces, yet the full picture of how they fit together remains elusive. Modern science gives us powerful tools to analyze their composition and pinpoint their age, yet the complete how and the profound why behind their creation often linger just beyond our grasp. This space between what we can measure and what we can truly understand is where both rigorous research and boundless imagination find their home. It is a fertile ground for discovery. Let these enduring wonders serve as a spark, igniting your own curiosity to question the narratives you know, to explore the edges of history, and to look deeper at the world around you. The greatest mystery is not always what was lost, but what we have yet to learn from what remains. If this journey through impossible engineering captivated you, subscribe for more deep dives into history's greatest puzzles. And we would love to hear from you. Share in the comments below which of these 20 marvels baffles and inspires you the most.